Welcome out, everyone. This is June 25th, our June informational webinar. We're going to be talking today about employment opportunities. I'm Dr. Carlos Grandella from Viewfinder Low Vision. I'm an optometrist, and all I do is help people who have visual impairment to try and meet their visual goals for independence and function. Today we have a special guest, David Steinmetz from Arizona Industries for the Blind, which is a local nonprofit. We want to really highlight today a lot of the great things that they do to inspire employment opportunities here in Arizona, and then talk a little bit about what we can do as individuals with visual impairment to get the best jobs, to be adequately trained. What are the resources that are available? So for a little history on Arizona Industries for the Blind, and I'm going to let David kind of take this in a moment to give us the full view. They are a nonprofit that was established in 1952. Their mission is to provide quality employment opportunities for people who have blindness or visual impairment, although they do hire both sighted and visually impaired individuals to help their goals in providing high quality services to their customers. They've got three core values, which are do your best, do the right thing, and treat others how you want to be treated. They have three major divisions, which are Focus Works, Digital Data Scan, and Distribution Services. You can learn more about them on their website, www.azifb.com. They are located physically at 515 North 51st Avenue, Suite 130 in Phoenix, Arizona. And if you think you'd be a good employee, you can reach them at hr@azifb.com. So with that settled, I'm going to turn the time back to David and talk a little bit about Arizona Industries for the Blind and his role there as the public relations manager. David, I'll cede the time to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Grandella. I am David Steinmetz. I'm the Public Relations Manager at Arizona Industries for the Blind, also known as AIB. I've been fortunate to work for AIB for the last 16 years. As a person who is blind and visually impaired, I have retinitis pigmentosa. I have found that it's a great opportunity for me to use my skills and knowledge and background from my previous work experience to advance my career here at AIB. I started out as a computer operator 3, working in our distribution services unit and kind of supervising a lead team of 3 other individuals who supported our customers, worked and internal and external customers. As the years passed, opportunities became available for upward mobility. I applied for those, competed against internal and external applicants, and was promoted to a unit manager of our digital data scan business unit, as well as our production services or manufacturing unit that we operated for many years. As other opportunities became available to support our public relations department, I applied for that and again was promoted to the public relations manager. I feel it's really important for me as kind of thinking on my personal mantra to really change the perception of blindness, what capabilities of people who are blind, and I do that one conversation at a time. So this is a great opportunity, and I thank you, Dr. Grandella, for giving this opportunity to talk about what it takes to get employed, as well as resources available, and then the things that we do as an organization. And I just take one quick moment to talk about AIB. AIB is an enterprise nonprofit organization. So we conduct business just like any other organization or company to generate revenue and profits to sustain our mission, which is to inspire Arizonans or people who are blind and visually impaired to achieve their highest goals and aspirations so that they can participate in their version of the American dream. We have 3 different business units where we first is our distribution services unit. This is a fulfillment center. It's a working fulfillment center where we receive, store, and distribute products for our customer, and we ship those worldwide. It's a 200,000 square foot distribution center in Phoenix. Also located at the same location is our digital data scan. And digital data scan, in the most simplest way of saying that, is basically we convert paper to electronic records for our customers. And we do this for a variety of state, commercial, and federal customers as well. Our third business unit is our base supply centers. Here we support our active duty, military, and other federal customers throughout the state with quality products that they need to be successful in their mission. So whether it is deployment gear, individual equipment, to office supplies, soldiers can come into our storefront and purchase the items that they need or order online through our e-commerce portal. So there's a lot of different variety and options for that. The most important thing is that throughout these business activities, we're providing those opportunities for people who are blind, who have the desire, who have the skills, and are motivated to work, to come into our organization and be successful. We'll give them the tools as long as they have that desire. That's kind of our organization in a kind of a nutshell there, Dr. Grandel. So I know we had a couple of questions that maybe I can answer for you.
Yeah. A lot of what I want to talk about today is, so if we pick, the average person out who has some kind of visual impairment, but is trying to stay in the workforce, let's just start off with kind of what's the basic advice that you would give to someone who, comes to visit and is saying, hey, I really want to come back to work. What do I need to do to get ready to be back in the workforce?
Sure, that's a great question. And really for an individual who is ready to go back to work after receiving some of their vocational rehabilitation training, if that's necessary, you want to be prepared. And so you want to make sure that you have the skill sets to be able to do the task or the job that you want to do. So I think being prepared is the most important thing, having the desire, utilizing resources such as like the Vocational Rehabilitation Program to assist you with that skills development, with those what we call blindness skill sets, right? The technology, the orientation and mobility, and get those skills down, and then work with the employer on the tools, assistive technology maybe that you would need to be successful. So really it's kind of a mindset, I think, of being prepared and then using those tools to be successful.
Absolutely. We've got another guest who's joined us. I'm going to keep everybody muted to begin with, and then we're going to be taking questions toward the end. So thank everybody who's tuning in with us. So to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, David, vocational rehabilitation services are super important. I think for anybody who has any impairment, whether it's vision or not, should take advantage of this. This is a state program that's under the Department of Economic Services here in Arizona. If you're from another state and you happen to tune in with us, you may have a different statewide agency, but there's usually vocational services of some kind. They may just have a different name for it. In Arizona, the contact info for vocational rehabilitation is 1-800-563-1221. And that number is where you would call to get a caseworker who would be assigned to you and talk to you about what your goals are for going back to school and learning a skill, going to a trade program, or getting into, just landing a career itself. They're going to give you the support you need as far as networking between doctor visits, getting accommodations and tools that you might need. That's where Viewfinder and I myself would come in for a large part. Viewfinder, we get a lot of patients from vocational rehabilitation who very specifically want to go back to school or want to get a certain job. And my job is to say visually, what do we need to get them on a computer again, or to be working at a desk, or to have transportation back and forth? David, do you have experience with that program, maybe colleagues who've gone through that, or could you give any insight on that experience at all?
Sure. Yeah. Personally, I was a client of the Vocational Rehabilitation Program here in Arizona. I was working full time for a small manufacturing company. My vision continued to deteriorate, and I walked into my boss's office one day and told him, "Here, I have this visual impairment. I'm no longer able to drive." And in that split second, that manager, owner of the business, saw me as more of a liability than an asset. And so he restricted my work duties, basically, in a sense, confined me to my desk. And so I knew that if I wanted to compete or to grow and to be able to be successful in my job, that I needed to get additional support. And that support came in of those skill set trainings on how to use technology, as well as part of my college. I re-entered college as an adult, started a family, and took me working full time, going to school about 6 years to get through college. But I was successful in graduating with a business degree from ASU. And along that path, Voc Rehab or VR supported me with the tools I needed. The Resource Center at ASU as well supported me with the tools that I needed to be successful and graduate. RSA or Voc Rehab also helped me with my job search and placement. So I did a lot of interviewing, a lot of searching, and fortunately for me, found my way to AIB.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think kind of the follow up that goes with that, so there's definitely resources that are out there and available. There's a lot that you can learn to do on your own, but I think it's a disservice to anybody to not take advantage of resources that are out there. For those who have visual impairment, what kind of jobs are available? What kind of things could they realistically say, I'm going to go and do this job?
Sure, I think that's probably one of the most common questions we get, either whether it's within the blindness community, and even when I'm out talking to other businesses or other organizations. And really, what I believe is with the proper training, the proper technology, an individual who's blind can pretty much do any job. So if you were an accountant in your prior work experience, let's say, and you had a life event where you're losing or lost your vision, with the proper training technology, you can still continue to be an accountant, right? Computer-based applications, assistive technology, etc. I think, if you were a truck driver, continuing to be a truck driver, probably not a foreseeable future that you would want to continue to do. But within that industry, there's plenty of other jobs that you could do, whether it's doing logistics and planning those movements of trucks, or customer service sales within the trucking industry. Manufacturing, there's a technology that can be deployed on computer numeric controlled or CNC machinery that enables someone who is blind to run one of these big CNC machines and make aircraft parts, to sewing, to administrative or professional services. So really, the limiting factor is really going to be technology and the person's ability to interact with that technology.
Absolutely. I love how you pointed that out, because it's a very personal thing, where you're working and the level that you're willing to go to adapt to things. Some people are just not tech savvy or don't want to be tech savvy. And that can be a limiting factor for sure. But there are constantly, I think every year that I've been doing low vision, there are new devices that I have to learn that open up some new avenue, whether it's smartphone accessibility features that have come out, or new apps that have come out, or actual devices that we sell and market to customers. I thought it was really cool when I came into Viewfinder in 2019. I had the opportunity to tour with David at the warehouse there in Phoenix, and see the distribution process go on, and see everybody working in the line and scanning barcodes and processing everything. And nobody missed a beat. Everybody was there to work. They were dedicated, and I didn't see anybody who was left to their own devices, or not a part of the full functioning team. It was a great experience to see. And I saw very similar things as a resident in Chicago. I did my residency at the Chicago Lighthouse for the Blind and Illinois College of Optometry. And Chicago Lighthouse has a clock making program that they do. So I was in the low vision clinic, and above us in the floor, I don't know if it was directly above us, but they had a clock manufactory going on. And those, from what I understand, are the clocks that show up in elementary schools and a lot of these other federal buildings. There's actually, I should have brought it in to show, that was actually my, award at the end of residency, was a specially made clock there from the Lighthouse.
Nice.
Very cool. It's one of the proudest things I display. But they had that, and they had recently opened in the last couple of years a telemarketing service as well. And not telemarketing, but I said that wrong. A call center.
Mm-hmm.
They would answer the phones. Yeah.
Right, contact center type. Yeah.
Yeah. So companies would contract out to them, and you had all of these people with visual impairment who were fully employed taking calls, and they had scripts to go through, and I got to walk through there as well. And what a way to go and not let the vision hold you back from doing what you wanted to do and being fully active in it. We do have questions coming in the chat, which is great. I'm going to get to those towards the end, and we'll give you guys time to voice those, or you can put them in the chat and I'll read them out loud. So don't hesitate to keep sending questions. That's great. I have a few more that I've planned out I'm going to ask here. So I'm going to skip back and forth. I'm finding a little bit better flow with some of these. What would you say are some of the biggest struggles of returning to work with a visual impairment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, for whether you have a visual impairment or not, a disability or not, is really, those first few days jitter in terms of some of the challenges. But generally the barriers to employment for someone who is blind are generally access to information, whether it's printed or electronic. What's that first day like going to be on the work site? So being prepared, understanding and having good orientation mobility skills, and just trying to work through those kind of first day jitters. Mm-hmm. But really for getting back to work is really understanding that path that you want to go and working to get the skill sets necessary to achieve that goal. Here at AIB, oftentimes when we'll have somebody, it's usually maybe their first job that they've had, or the first job right after losing their sight and going through all the service, training and services to live independently, is we'll work with that individual, do some job shadowing, ensuring that they have that orientation to the facility, understanding where the fire exits and things like that, where supervisors or other leads may be. And so it's kind of taking in information and understanding your environment. I think are some of the key things to do to help you overcome those challenges of getting back into work. And also really trying to work on your communication and your confidence to come across to that employer, come to your supervisor when you come on site, is that, look, I've got the training, I've got the technology, I'm ready to work. I often, when I would go out on an interview, bring my laptop with me, and I almost, in a sense, demoing to them that I'm capable of taking down notes, or had some research done in advance, and this is kind of how I did it, without really saying, look, here's how I did it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of being an advocate for yourself as well.
I love the two of the words that you said there. One, confidence. I think that's a huge thing. I feel like a lot of patients that I see have lost that confidence because they can
Mhm.
go through a series of doctors and get, well, no, you can't drive, and no, you can't go do this, and no, I don't have anything to help you, and no. And by the time they get to me, I kind of have to give a reversal a little bit and say,
Mhm.
yes, you can do these things, but it does require an adaptation and it does require a new way. Were you going to say something too?
Yeah, I agree. Um, one of the things that I think AIB is a great role model in the community, and whether we support VR with some tours or someone is interested in working for our organization, is we can come down. We'll walk you through the facility. We'll look at the different types of jobs, the technology that you kind of mentioned, Dr. Grandella, when you were in the warehouse, and show you that you can do the job. There's technology out there. People are doing it every day. And whether it's in our organization or in the private sector, or even in the state, that you are capable. You still have something to contribute as an individual. Just because you don't have the vision doesn't, or you don't have your sight in a sense, it doesn't mean that you lose your vision for who you are and what you want to be. So I think that's really important and I appreciate you working with your clients and giving them that boost of confidence that you can.
Absolutely. And you said self-advocacy. I think that's such an important thing to bring up. If you don't speak up for yourself and what you can do and your capabilities, nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important tool to have in your tool belt. So the next one up I was going to say was, what do you think are some of the most common adaptations people are using who have visual impairment to overcome those obstacles and challenges?
Sure. So a lot of the adaptations are things that people are using, right, from orientation mobility, using a cane to a guide dog. Um, some individuals, again, that blindness is not a one size fits all. And I know that that Dr. Grandella, as you see your patients and you try and work with them, what works for one person might not work for the next. But having those skill sets, from screen readers to screen magnification, these are things that are either third-party software that, with a screen reader, is giving you audible information about what you see on the computer screen or your smartphone, to screen magnification so that it enlarges the font or the document on your screen, to desktop devices and handheld devices that do kind of the similar, where they scan or magnify. So really it depends on the work setting. In our organization, for example, in our distribution center, we're using actually industry standard technology to pick, pack, and ship the product. So we scan barcodes, and the system will audibly tell you if you're like in the right location. It will tell you how many you should pick, so you don't need a paper pick ticket.
Mm-hmm.
We also use closed circuit TVs or CCTVs, that someone can put a packing list or a receiver, like inbound receiving, can view what the part number is, the quantity, etc. Compare that to what's on the box using a handheld magnifier. Some people, go as low tech as using a Sharpie and say that, a regular ballpoint pen is not enough. But if I use a Sharpie, the bolder, thicker line, I can read handwritten information using a Sharpie. So really variety of different technology out there. And, you can probably go into viewfinders and seeing a lot of that technology there.
100%. I don't think I would add anything to what you said. I think that was a perfect example. It runs the gamut. It depends on the person, what they're looking for, and what they need. You did a great job also of kind of talking about why AIB is different from other employers. You pointed out a lot of your process. Is there anything else you would add to that? Just say, what does AIB how are they different from other employers?
I apologize. I missed the question. My connection was.
Oh, that's okay. So, is there anything else you would say to how AIB is different from other employers?
In terms of um, organization, we set expectations just like any other organization. We evaluate your work environment. I think what sets us apart as that role model is that we understand that you may have a barrier, you may have a challenge, and we're going to work with you to overcome those barriers so that you can be successful. Uh, we There may be times where it's the role that you're put in terms of opportunity that you're looking for might not be a good fit for you. And I don't mean put in, but that you're applying for, or that you think that I would want to do this. And as you go through that and through evaluation, that maybe that's not a good fit for you, we can see if we can work with you or partner with vocational rehabilitation to find a job that would match your skill sets.
Absolutely. And I love that you talk about the connection with VR, and you guys working together. It's kind of the next question is, what are some of the programs that are out there that patients can enroll in to help them in this process? We talked about VR already. Are there any other groups that you would bring up, any other services that you find your employees are constantly involved in, or that you've had experience with to get back into the workforce?
Yeah, so I think the path I chose was utilizing vocational rehabilitation to help me better understand my blindness. I think, whether it's a support group, I know, Dr. Grindell, you have some support groups and other activities. Having that peer network is really beneficial. It helped me. I partnered with the group that was focused on my visual impairment and getting a better understanding of what that is, and other people going through similar things. It's not necessarily a gripe session, but it's to learn about it. It's also an opportunity to say, yeah, I understand, and you can do it, and have that support. And we do that here as well. But through vocational rehabilitation, you do get that opportunity to work with different service providers to do that orientation training or independent living skills, getting job ready in a sense. There's Talking Book Library, for example. That's another great resource for individuals who are blind or have other disabilities that inhibit their ability to read print. That you can sign up for and get books. You can download them to your phone. They can send you a player, and then books come on cartridges digitally, and you can listen to books or read music. There are resources such as Sun Sounds, for example, that you can listen to them actually reading the newspaper, magazines, and different things that you would do reading print. They would do that as a service as well. So I think that those are really, in terms of resources for someone who's going through training or looking to get back to work, I would say that these things can help keep you engaged, keep your mind active and your body active.
Absolutely. Vocational rehabilitation, I found it tends to share the love quite a bit with several of the nonprofits that are in the area who do different things. There's a couple different groups in Arizona that are very much focused on vision impairment, and they have different philosophies and different locations as well. If you go down to the Tucson area, you're more likely to get enrolled with something like Savvy Services for the Blind. And they very much want to teach you how to do everything without relying on your vision at all. To the point I understand they'll blindfold people who come in to do their classes because they don't want you to utilize any vision. Perhaps one day that vision won't be there, and so they want you to have that skill set without relying on sight to do things, which I thought was very interesting. I got to go tour them a while back, and There's Arizona Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, who does a lot of similar services to Savvy. They both have orientation mobility instructors, technology specialists. There's a few other groups in Arizona as well, like Ability 360. There's technical groups like Arizona Technology Access Program. So there's it doesn't have to be one-stop shop. There's quite a few different people we can talk to about that. And I know some of them have low vision support groups. There's retinal specialists who have low vision support groups. So if you find that your experience with one group is sour or doesn't fit the mold or not what you wanted, you don't have to feel like that's the only one you can go to by any means.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is you have a choice. You're not just kind of feel like you have to be in one place or another. There's consumer groups, advocacy groups throughout the state and throughout the nation that also support and understand and advocate, and you can be part of that. Kind of a membership type consumer group. Such as National Federation for the Blind,
absolutely,
or through ACB, American Council for the Blind, and American Foundation for the Blind. So there's lots of resources that you can join to become a member of those organizations. There's fitness groups through lots of. I just as you were talking reminded me that there's through Mesa Public Parks. There's fitness groups and just all the daily living things that whether you were born blind or lost your vision later in life that you did and want to continue to do. There are people out there that help you do that.
Yeah, 100%. So our next question, you kind of touched on this a little bit already. Finding a job that fits what you want to do. How can people best go about finding a job that fits their visual ability?
I apologize. My computer was talking. One more time.
No, that's all right. We got a comment. I know you have the screen readers on. So you kind of touched on this already. How can people go about finding a job that fits what they want to do and what they feel like they can visually perform? Are there tips and tricks to that?
Yeah. Through through the assessment process, and I think the best route was going through the vocational rehabilitation program, is because they'll partner with those service providers who have the experience and knowledge and the technology to do the specialized training for people who are blind. Is that they'll kind of work with you to build that assessment and identify what some of your strengths and weaknesses are, your skill sets. Some people may say, look, I was doing a kind of a white collar type job and I want to continue to do this industry. They'll look at what the skill sets are necessary for that and work with you to help you gain the skill sets to do that. So maybe learning Braille and using a Braille note taker or refreshable Braille display so that you can continue to do that job. If it was something that you really had to kind of be retrained and go into a different industry, again, they'll help you make that assessment. That's generally the best way to do that. If look, I'm an IT guy, I want to stay in IT, and you want to learn that technology on your own and go out and find an organization that you demonstrate your skill sets and they're going to hire you, then fantastic. Really kind of individualized. Again, we kind of help through some of the processes, or we can work with clients of those programs and say, these are the jobs that we have here at our organization. This is what we look for from an employee's perspective. And then they can work with their counselors and so forth to help get them the skill sets. In that sense, really, for me, I don't think it's much different for someone who's blind as it is for someone without a disability, is kind of know the industry that you're going into.
Yeah.
And understand what those things are. So, there's nothing wrong with doing an informational interview. Here's what, right? And encourage you to do that, whether it's with us or with another organization that you're thinking you want to do.
Yeah, I really like that. And you've kind of highlighted a couple times now that there is no one size fits all for this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's lifestyle is very different. Their needs visually are going to be very different. And I'm going to run with, your example of an IT guy. I've had people come in who were in the IT specialization, and so that's a whole different ballpark than somebody who I've had lawyers come in. Lawyers are doing lots of physical paperwork, need a very different setup than someone who's an IT guy, whether their hardware or software is different as well, but so there are lots of accessibility things on computers just built into it already. And then you jump into things like Zoom text, Infusion, screen readers like you were talking about. That might be what somebody needs if they have a specialized program that the Windows magnifier doesn't work for, or the Mac magnifier doesn't, or the narrator doesn't speak it. So I think that's fantastic. Everybody's got to have their individual plan. And that's a big benefit to having the support system, is to have somebody advocating with you. Somebody who's saying, yeah, you're right, you do need this, and let's get you the connection for it. And let's send you here to get this evaluation done and find out how much that's going to benefit you. And like you said, an informational interview, go in and research, gather the info you need to make those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to go back to what we talked about before, is really keeping your drive and your desire at the highest level. For me, I struggled, initially with my vision loss of, what can I do? I asked that same question. And fortunately, I had, good support from my family and from friends, and took, started to take those initiatives to advocate for myself and seek out those things. For anybody, to be successful in life, you really have to, work hard. Things don't come easy all the time. You have to work hard for it, and you have to have that desire to continue to push yourself and really push the boundaries of what blindness is, and demonstrate to yourself and to others that there really are no limits to what you can do, only the limits that we put on ourselves.
Yeah. So I've only got 2 questions left, and then we're going to do audience questions. But you really made me think back to one of my favorite examples. Had a patient in Chicago who I believe he had only light perception. So he could tell if the lights were on in the room or if they were off. But if you moved your hand in front of his face, he wouldn't be able to tell. So that's pretty close to total blindness. And he was a writer. And he would spend his days going to the public library. He'd ride the train through Chicago to the public library using his GPS and his white cane. And then he would get to the library and use I think he had a Braille keyboard and a narrator set on his computer that would echo back to him as he typed what he was typing. And he would use voice controls to say, okay, go back and read the last paragraph, or he could dictate things as well. And so he was, to me, a shining example of don't let anything stop you. He wanted to be a writer. It's what he loved. And I was in a support session hearing him talk about his story. And he was so happy to talk about his writing. And I thought, what a great example.
Sure.
So last couple questions, and then we'll move to audience questions here. What laws are available in Arizona to protect employees who have a visual impairment? For example, if you have a job and you're looking to get accommodations there, and not all businesses do what they're supposed to get you those accommodations.
Yeah, so the ADA, or Americans with Disability Act, really is the law that governs in terms of protection for people with disabilities, someone who is blind, visually impaired. It's currently working or applying for a job. and feels that there may be some discrimination or not getting the tools you need, that's kind of the guidance for employers and employees. One, you obviously have to have a qualifying disability under the ADA. You would have to have the skill sets to perform the job, the job responsibilities, utilizing with or without accommodations. And thirdly, you would have to demonstrate that there was some form of, I don't want to say discipline, or some form of action on the employer that would prevent you from doing that job.
Yeah.
So, like for somebody who was maybe deafblind or had, and their primary language is sign language, American Sign Language, and in meetings the company would not provide that sign language interpreter, then and then they come back and say, well, you didn't meet these performance goals that we set forth in this meeting. Well, it's very difficult for that person to get that information if it's not communicated.
Right.
So that's kind of an example of where they're not meeting those accommodations. So in Arizona, there's the Arizona Center for Disability Law.
Absolutely.
And they are really good team of experts there that can assist with questions about the ADA and your rights as an employee and also as an employer, because not every accommodation has to be met. It depends on, again, the job, the reasonableness of it. We can't, let's say, tear down a wall or whatever it may be to make this happen, or the cost, the accommodation is not permissible, but we can do it in another way. So there's just lots of things that go into that reasonable accommodation.
Absolutely. And you mentioned employers. That kind of goes into my last question. There are people who have visual impairment who are entrepreneurs, or who already own a business when they begin to lose vision. And so are there any specialized resources that these individuals could turn to who own a business or running a business, want to run a business, that they could turn to?
There are groups. There's, for example, the Business Enterprise Program here locally. They own and operate like food service in state federal buildings. So there's a network of those. In terms of like resources for their blindness, again, I would say that looking at vocational rehabilitation, because they can assist with programs to look at your job and help you retain that job or to keep that business going, and provide that training.
Yeah, the Business Enterprise Program is a part of the Department of Economic Security. So the same agency that's housing vocational rehabilitation also does this Business Enterprise Program. So the same phone numbers before, the 1-800-563-1221, could get you connected with them as well. So David, thank you so much for answering all these questions and for preparing that for us. We have some audience questions that have come in. So these are mostly tailored to AIB.
Okay.
So does AIB do their own training, placement, and hiring for people who are looking to have employment but have visual impairment?
Oh, that's a really good question. So in terms of training, for the training aspect, we provide on-the-job training. So how to do the job that you've been hired to do. If you're asking about the assistive technology training, or the orientation and mobility training, we do not. What we oftentimes will do is, if you're a client of Vocational Rehabilitation, we'll partner with them to help you get to and from the building or within the inside the building, to assist you with that orientation while you're here, if it's something that we can't do. So that in terms of, but the rehabilitation services we do not offer at this point.
And that's an important part of that partnership. So if somebody comes to you and needs some of that training, we'll kind of share hands with vocational rehabilitation to get that process done and get the other skills in so that they can be successful at AIB.
Exactly. And we recruit through vocational rehabilitation. We recruit through the service providers, those that are doing the training. We put out information out on our website that you mentioned at the beginning, www.azifb.com. And the job and descriptions and announcements are on our careers page, and you can review it and see. And then if you meet those qualifications, we provide that on-the-job training. We can assist you with accommodations while you're here for the interview and things like that, and hire that way.
Yeah. So the next question was, can you explain the process for becoming skilled to work at AIB? I'm gonna tailor that a little bit and say, because there are these 3 different workforces through AIB, are there different skill sets to get for each of these, and kind of is there any expectation people should have coming in if they want to apply for the for the distribution services versus the digital data scan? Is there any skill set that they should focus on cultivating, or that they should expect to be trained on through AIB? Does that make sense? It's kind of a long-winded question.
Sure. So yeah, like you mentioned, exactly that. Depending on what job you're doing, the skill sets are going to be different. So, for example, in our warehouse, we have different considered job titles. From material handler. That job you may be doing picking orders in the morning, doing cycle counting in the afternoon, for example. So you do a variety of different tasks within the warehouse. You could be receiving and then going over to shipping in the afternoon, or vice versa. So really, some of the skill sets that we look for, there are some good interpersonal skills, communication skill sets. And you work in a team, can communicate. Listening is a really important part of that as well. So that you're able to take direction and listen and guidance from the supervisors and leadership team, and oftentimes your peers as well, in terms of supporting each other. So having good communication skills, some basic computer skills, right? Most of our jobs, we're focused on technology. So a lot of the technology we have is navigating on a computer. So having some basic keyboarding and computer skills and knowledge of that is really important. And then some of the core blindness skills that any employer is going to look for is, are you going to be able to get yourself to and from work? Are you prepared for the day? And, that means bringing a lunch and, dressing appropriately. All those kind of things play into really your ability to get a job.
Right. Professionalism. So next question is, does AIB offer tours of the facility?
Absolutely. We certainly do. We can set up times when we do meet and greets where for both prospective employees, as well as employers in the community. As I mentioned, they kind of like to be a role model. So we often have employers who want to say, is it possible, or how is it possible for them to employ people who are blind, vision impaired in their organization? We've had large warehouse and distribution centers, nationwide chains visit our distribution center to see, can they replicate, or can we make recommendations to them in their processes to empower someone to be successful in their work site. So you can reach out to me. My telephone number is 623-233-7882. Or you can find my contact information as well on our website.
Our last question that came in is there an age limit for qualifying for your work program?
The age limit is 18.
Mm-hmm.
And, each job, again, in terms of the skill sets, are going to be a little bit different. Some jobs require different levels of background checks and things like that. It just depends on what your goals are and where you would like to look and work. As an employer, as an organization, we often are out seeking new opportunities to grow. For example, we're looking to expand in our warehouse and distribution operations, as well as providing other administrative services, whether it's our document imaging or contact centers, and even looking at manufacturing. And we're looking to do that wherever we see a demand for that. So if we see a large demand of employment needs in the East Valley, for example, we have an opportunity that we can sustain employment, long-term employment, we're going to set up a facility in the East Valley and hire people. So that, again, another barrier is transportation. So that's kind of where we look to create new opportunities.
Follow-up question to that just came in. Is there a maximum age limit?
We don't discriminate on age. So, if we have people that have retired and came back to work because it keeps their mind active, their body active, that interaction, they're being successful and really believe in our mission. And we have a very diverse workforce. We all have the same mission, which is to support ourselves, to support each other, and support our customer, really, and making sure that we are doing and exceeding our customers' expectations.
Awesome. So now we're kind of wrapping up at this point. We have a couple people who've tuned in. If anybody wanted to talk to David and ask him a question or ask me a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself at this time. If you're happy just listening, don't feel like you have to do that. Go ahead.
Can you see my hand up? I'm waving at Dr. Grandella.
I can. Thank you for joining with us
today. So I'm a graduate of the, I'm still a VR client, but I'm a graduate of the ACBVI Pride program. And that was last fall. Things got delayed because of the coronavirus.
Right.
But I'd like to know, my plan, my office experience as a loan officer, that's still on the plate, but it doesn't have to be, as David indicated, taking the skill set of being able to work in financial services can transfer maybe to the digital data scan area. But I'm not opposed to being in the warehouse. I'm just wondering, do we apply on the AIB website for either one of those areas?
Sure. So again, thank you, ma'am. And I didn't capture your name. I apologize.
Oh, it's Porsche, pronounced like the car I never drove or could afford when I did drive.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Portia, the Shakespeare Porsche.
Porsche. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So yes, all our job current open positions are listed on our website, and there's a link to our HR department. It's HR at azifb.com.
Slow down. Hold on. I love this Da Vinci. HR
at
okay.
And then Z like zebra.
Mm-hmm.
F like foxtrot.
IF.
And B like Bravo.
Okay.
.com. And you can send your resume to that email address, and they can match up your skill sets with any current openings or any future openings as well.
AZIFB.
Yes, ma'am. And if you're interested in one particular area but would like to maybe apply for any open positions, please let them know that, and they would be glad to as positions become available. Kind of like what I did is, as I started my career here at AIB, as new opportunities came available, I was able to advance into different areas. So just because you're one area doesn't mean that's where you will be if you have the desire for others.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. Nice to meet you.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks for your question, Portia.
You're welcome.
So if there's anybody else who has a question, we'll give a moment for that. We've hit 4 o'clock, so it's about time to wrap up. So give a couple seconds here if anybody wants to unmute and ask another question or put it in the chat. You're welcome to do that. As we're waiting on those, I'm just going to say, again, we do this informational webinar once a month, the last Friday of every month from 3 to 4. It shows up on our YouTube page and our Facebook. It's usually streamed live on Facebook. It's saved there. So if anybody wants to come back and watch this at a later time, you can rewind and re-listen to emails and phone numbers and that kind of stuff again. So that'll be made available shortly after this. We also have our low vision support group at Viewfinder. It's called Living with Low Vision, and that is usually facilitated by Tom Persky from Iris Vision. He'll be out this month, so next Wednesday I'll be the facilitator. Unfortunately, you'll have to sit through with me for a little while longer. But Tom is with us each month. He's a wonderful facilitator. So anybody who's listening, we invite you to come out to those. So we haven't gotten any questions in. What's the AIB website? So we'll give that one more time. That's www.azifb.com. It's like Arizona Industries for Blind. azifb.com. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. David, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Grendel. This was really a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity and really to continue to change the perception of blindness one conversation at a time.
All right, everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you again. Have a great weekend.